So were you busy today, Mary?
I was busy, yes.
Yeah.
There are lots going on, lots of opportunities, and lenders have been wonderful, I think. So responsive. Also, how much communication happens in a time like this. I feel it's kind of enjoyable talking to appraisers I don't normally speak to, or um, the feeling of needing to be in touch with people more often has lent a sense of camaraderie and teamwork that, sometimes these deals just happen and you've barely had a chance to meet all the parties. And today I feel like we're all attentive to every facet.
It's funny you mention that because I remember back in '08 when the big crash happened that it was the same thing. This is not going to be a crash like that, but all the realtors got together, everybody was much easier to play with. That's for sure.
Oh, and the other agents that on the other side of transactions, we're all feeling a unity of how can we make this experience the best for our clients during this time, and a lot of compassion, possibly, and I think generosity and spirit, which is great.
Alrighty, about 5 more seconds here. So for those of you that are on actually the webinar through Zoom, thanks for waiting for us to put this all together. So now we're live. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. My name's Ed Huck with Keller Williams Realty, and tonight we have Mary Goodwin on with us as well. I guess Mary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, on your team, I'm a full-time real estate agent and productivity coach with newer agents on our team. Grew up here in Rocky River, went to Rocky River High School, then down to Miami University, out to the East Coast for a while.
I'm not going to ask when you graduated.
1981, out of high school. Nope, no shame. And for the last 8 years now, almost 7.5 years, I've been on your team here as a real estate agent with Keller Williams.
Yeah, but a huge integral part of our team success, that's for sure. So we love having Mary on the team. And yeah, my background, for those of you that don't know, I've been selling homes since about '92. I was with Realty One back in the day for a long time, managed the West Park Realty One office, then left there and started our team. And then came to Keller Williams about 13-ish years ago, 12, 13 years ago, right before the big financial crash and real estate crash in 2007, 2008. And I just thank everybody for joining us tonight. Normally, these are a little bit more interactive, so please feel free to ask questions, whether the questions are on Facebook or the questions are here on Zoom. And normally, we're having this at a more fun style, and what I mean by that is maybe at a restaurant or a bar. We've done them at Deegan's, we've done them at Houlihan's. So we will eventually get back to that format too. We actually did that one at down the street. Sibling Revelry, we've done a couple of these. So, but yeah, feel free to make this as interactive as you can. Just blurt out questions and hold your hand up if you're in the chat room. So let's dive into some of this real quick. Again, thank you for everybody for coming tonight. And let me share the right screen. Share that screen. Okay. Wait a second here. Some little technical difficulties. There we go. Now we're sharing the right screen. So again, thanks for coming. We already had some questions, so we put it out there on some of our social media and some of the questions we've just been getting from current clients that we want to make sure we hit tonight. One big one is the state of the real estate market, so we're going to go over that. If you were with us last week for the home sellers workshop, it's pretty much the same, except we have a little bit more up-to-date data. We have another week's worth of data for you. When will it rebound? Which, we'll talk, make sure maybe Mary talks about that, but is it a good time to buy? When will there be deals? We've had some buyers talking about, and watching the national news. And of course, let's talk about that for half a second. Well, and we're also going to talk about rent versus buy, plus any of the questions that anybody else happens to have. Anyway, lost my train of thought for a second. But at State of the Market, we're going to talk about all these topics for everybody. We're going to bounce around in our PowerPoint a little bit because this PowerPoint's more geared for an interactive workshop. But I'm going to dive into the market. And actually, Mary, you can kind of take over for some of this and kind of explain some of the huge differences between what happened back in 2008 and what's happening now as far as it pertains to the real estate market.
Right, and especially on the buyer's end. Back in '08, we were at the peak of inventory. There was a glut of homes to buy. It was considered a buyer's market. Ed will talk about what that means in a little while. Hugely, interest rates. I mean, this makes me laugh because we moved here and we thought it was phenomenal that interest rates were 9.5%. That was earlier than 2008. Interest rates went to 7%, then to 6%. They were considered high to our standards today. And particularly one of the building blocks to the collapse, if that's an oxymoron, probably it is. But one of the fundamental reasons for the collapse was the loose lending guidelines and the lack of oversight. People bought into homes they couldn't afford. They carried mortgages that were impossible for them to afford. There was, no income verification. There were so many allowing or parameters that allowed people to get in over their heads. And then there was the resale of these mortgage-backed securities, which created a market to almost capitalize on someone's loss, which was, a real tragedy. But then as people overbought and had too much debt, they were unable to have any equity in their home. So when it collapsed, they were so underwater, as we use in this terminology, meaning they owed way more on their home than it was worth. That just created a long-term sink. So today, that's absolutely not the case. We have not enough homes. Our inventory is low. It's considered a seller's market. Historically, rates have never been this low. And I think projection-wise, what I like to hear is due to this mostly outside force economic hit, interest rates should continue to stay low, because I believe what all indicators say is that interest rates are going to help us pull out of this economic downturn, and they're an instrument that we can control. So much of this we haven't been able to control. Interest rates, I think, will continue to stay historically low.
Yeah, I just read an article just yesterday or the day before that talked about rates staying in this 3% probably through most of next year, or at least through the beginning parts of next year. So we should see these rates around 33%, plus or minus a little bit, for a 30-year fixed for a long time.
Yeah, and prior to this, downturn, people were employed, their credit scores were coming up. Sellers have more equity in their homes than they've ever had. So lenders are a little bit more calm, although they continue not to make as many risky loans and are continually watching the signs that, they don't get themselves in trouble again. It's a health crisis, not an economic crisis, and not a parameter of poor regulation that's causing this. And there's a lot of equity in homes. So if sellers end up having to turn and sell for a small amount less than the last year and a half or 2 years or 3 years, they still have quite a bit of equity. So there's leverage for them to come out very healthy.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a lot different. And here we just threw up some graphs just to give everybody a little idea of what actually is happening or has happened. And this light green is the number of homes sold, for sale. The dark green is the number of homes that have actually transferred, and the red is the month they went under contract. The real thing to look at though is, so back here in '05 and '06, before we had, the mortgage meltdown, the crisis, we had a ton of homes for sale, like Mary was saying. You don't actually see it kind of start to go back down until 2012 or 2013. So we already had a lot of homes for sale. A ton more homes came on the market. We had this little dip in 10, and it came right back up in 2011. And then things finally started to level off in 2012. When you look down over here at the last quarter of 2020, you can see we've got hardly any homes for sale. And the dark green bars, a ton of homes selling. So it's really a seller's market. This shows average consecutive days on the market. So how long is it taking homes to sell? It used to take pre, 2008 crash, about 70, 80 days. Then that got all the way up to 150, 160 days. It's come back down to about 70, which this is really deceiving though. When, if you were to look at the last quarter, the first quarter of 2020, if it says that the average market time is 70 days, what you're really seeing though, when you dissect this, is homes are selling in 7 days or under, right? I mean, they're flying off the shelf.
And Ed,
Yep.
for the clarification, this is all of the MLS, or this is the
Great
area
question. This is pretty much just more of our west side.
Okay.
And this is going to hold true if I were to take all of Northeastern Ohio as well. But that was a great question. So
Yeah.
homes are either selling in like 7 days, or they're selling like in 100 days or 110 days. There's kind of like no in between. So when you say the average is 70, you need to kind of dive a little deeper into that. This shows average sale price over that same time period, how we were hovering back before '08, in that 180 mark. We went down to closer to 150. Now we're back over where we were. So the good news is we've regained all the loss that we had. So the red line is average sold prices, green is average asking prices. And I know you always like to point this out, Mary, the gap between the green and the red when the market gets good.
Well, it's kind of funny because we talk a lot about different areas of our market, and some markets never even dipped. They really didn't suffer the crash. They just kind of leveled out, and then their spike went right back up to the normal rates that they were going, the normal growth they were going. And I also often laugh is that when sellers found out it was a seller's market, they said, "Hey, we can ask more." And I love talking to my buyers and my clients who are on the buy side, saying sellers can say that, but buyers are smart. They know what the market's telling them. They know they have the tools, they have the resources, and if they have the right agent, they're not going to overpay. That's our thought here. But so it's a funny where that gap started.
Yeah, it is, and it's so back here is right when everything kind of leveled out in 2012. There's not that much of a gap between the average asking price and average sold price. But when the market gets good, everybody gets a little greedy and thinks they can ask for a little bit more. This is our quick graph of home sellers versus home, we have buyer's market, seller's market, neutral market. In realtor world, if we have over 6 months worth of inventory, it's a strong buyer's market. If we have between 3 and 6, it's neutral. If we have under 3, it's a seller's market. So it's another way to kind of look at that first graph that we looked at. Anyway, it does really show that pre-08, we were already in a neutral to buyer's market. And then we ended up with this crazy strong buyer market for years, and then dipped back into the neutral market for a year or two. And then we've been in a strong seller's market ever since. The other thing to quickly look at is, I might have lost my audio or my video, but nobody needs to see me anyway. I can fix that in a second, but you can still hear me talk. So the other thing we've really been trying to pay attention to is what's happened in the first 4 months of this year during COVID, and what's happened in the first 4 months of 19. And just a real quick synopsis is the number of listings for sale, the number of active listings that we can go sell is down 40%. from 2019. New listings is down about 20%. Homes sold is flat. And homes under contract, so being lists, accepting offers, is, I would almost call that flat too, is only down 2%. So that's a really interesting statistic to look at. Take that back, I was reading that wrong. So it's the bottom chart that shows May of 19 through April. Take that back, I was right about that. This is another graph that I like to look at too. Sorry for the confusion.
Did you all notice I let Ed do all the graphs?
Yeah, exactly. I get the charts and graphs. So if I make a mistake, I look like the knucklehead. Anyway, so that's the first half of, or first 4 months of 20 versus first 4 months of 19. The other thing we like to look at, like a rolling 12 months. What's been going on for a rolling 12? So that'll take in consideration, real estate has some seasonality to it. Obviously, we normally sell more homes in spring and summer than we do in fall and winter. It still shows the same things though, that number of homes available to sell is down 28%. New listings is down, ironically enough, only about 3.5% on a rolling 12 month. And sold are actually up and pendings are up. So, one of the big questions we always get is, oh my gosh, are homes selling right now? And the answer is, oh my gosh, yes, they are. They're flying off the shelf, actually. This actually shows average sale price, that same two categories, basically. If you were to take the first 4 months of 19 versus, which is the ones down here, versus the first 4 months of 20, average sold price is actually up 11%. Mm-hmm. So for the first 4 months of this year versus last year, if you do the rolling 12, we're up about 6%.
It's probably important too to note that these stats are not quite taking into account the changes in the last 6 to 8 weeks, as far as what is the behavioral change in selling your home or buying your home. I mean, I don't know. We don't have all the May stats, and I don't know. Does this go up to April?
It does, yeah. So the new, so this bottom one does. So that's the neat thing about, they just started this a couple of weeks ago, that we can actually say the first 4 months of 19 versus the first 4 months of 20, which actually would take a big chunk of COVID in there because it really kicked off like that first week of March. But the average sale prices are up. So, yeah. I mean, it's been interesting to see that. And then like Mary was talking about, it's a strong seller's market, and it's become even a stronger seller's market. So.
One other thing I noticed just anecdotally is the buyers are home working, and oftentimes they're home together working. So instead of just saying, well, I can go see homes on weekends or evenings, they're calling and saying, hey, at lunch hour, can we go see this house? Can we? So their availability is way more exposed or, enhanced now in some cases.
Very true. Yeah, very true. I mean, it's, and some people are finding out that they might not like staying in their small house, or find out they don't like their neighbors, or a million other reasons why they might want to consider moving nowadays. Or if they're working from home and they don't have a spot to work from home. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are working at their dining room table, and kids are running around and the dogs are barking.
Oh yeah. And they realize, I found that some of them know that their long-term job is going to allow them more flexibility to work at home, and they need more space. Or today, I just got a call from a buyer who said, I've been renting, love my place in Tremont, but I've realized that all this time to myself, I don't want to invest in my own house, or in someone else's house. I'd rather do projects in my own house. I'd rather work in my own yard. So I really like to take the plunge and buy now, because I see, if this happens again, or if for other reasons, when I really enjoy spending time at home, I'd like to invest in my own investment.
Right. Somebody mentioned deals. I mean, what do you think about when we're going to start seeing deals?
You asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay. Well, that's a great question. I have had a conversation with numbers of people of different age groups, and I find my older clients, and I being one of them, remember back in the day when we bought our first home and interest rates were if I can go there. My husband was 18.5% his first home. When we moved back to Cleveland, we thought getting 7.75 was amazing. As we see now, with interest rates being hovering at 3% and sometimes less, they do think interest rates will they'll juggle back and forth, but we know they're going to stay low. The deal has been capturing this rate, because should we wait and a year from now, there's no guarantee that buyers are going to have the same opportunity to borrow money at as cheap a rate as it is. And with interest still on your first home, should you be someone who files taxes with itemization, you are still deducting that, which, let's say for the average income citizen, you have a third of that you deduct off that. So my husband and I used to say, well, take a third off, because that's what we could, legally deduct off taxes. So interest rates are, I can't do the math, but they're pretty low.
They're very low. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they're very low. And we live in an area of the country where, unlike the coasts, our housing market, we consider the prices higher, but our prices are still so reasonable for the kind of jobs and opportunities. So we are looking at a great rate and pretty decent pricing continuing to be the forecast for buyers today.
Yeah, and I think that's something to talk about real quick too, is where you're getting your news. And there's obviously, we could go on that topic for hours, but we're not going to go down some of those rabbit holes. What I really mean by that is nationally. If you're watching national news and hear the real estate markets in the toilet, or sales are down 30%, which I did just see on a national website, it's probably true across the country, because lots of other parts of the country, they're not deemed essential. So they've not been selling houses for the last 6 to 8 weeks, or we have been.
Right.
And like those numbers show that, sure, there's a lot less homes available, but we've not seen a slowdown in the number of buyers that are going after these houses. So again, just make sure, and you're going to see probably people, start crying about, oh, the homes are depreciating. Well, those homes are probably overinflated again anyway. That's not our case here in Northeastern Ohio at all.
And some areas of the country I just read about experiencing many investors going in and taking over mass amounts of housing to turn into Airbnb, and with travel kind of cutting and curtailed, those investors are hurting. I know we have Airbnb in Cleveland, but mostly we have primary occupancy, and we have investors who are renting their homes to long-term tenants. So our market is not going to be affected the same way. So you're right. The important thing you say is keep your real estate news regional, local, and you'll get the best answers to your questions.
And even like Mary mentioned before, hyper local. So that's those stats we were showing. If you go over 400,000 or 500,000, it's a little different market up there, and it's taking a little longer for some of those to sell. I would argue there might be some deals up there in that price range, because it's taking some of that price range is probably definitely in the neutral market, depending on the house. And something that just popped in my head. Let me share something that we sometimes don't share at a buyer's workshop, but I think it's appropriate here. It's something from our sellers workshop where we normally will talk to sellers about how the market used to be back 5, 10, 20 years ago, where there was hardly any buyers wanting to flip houses. There was no this old house. So there was this old house, but there was no flip this house, Property Brothers. None of those shows existed.
And nobody remembers this old house.
I know, it's still on. I actually recorded it. So it is still on, exactly. And some of the same original cast members are on there. Anyway, but anyway, there was not that many people fixing up houses to flip them 20 years ago. There was a large pool of buyers willing to pay an average price for an average house, and a small pool of buyers willing to buy a house that was totally updated and pay extra for it. Today's buyer, though, a ton of investors flipping houses. Ton of buyers want the done. I mean, I can't tell you, it's been interesting to watch younger buyers want the totally updated house. All the empty nesters and baby boomers want the totally updated house because they don't want to do the work again. Everybody wants a totally updated house. So a deal can be found in the average home. So if you find what we've affectionately call a grandma house, where grandma has taken and put the new roof, the new windows, and maybe new furnace in, but the carpet's from 72 and shag green. And I was just in one the other day that had like the foil wallpaper. If you're willing to put a little sweat equity in, you can actually get some great deals out there.
And I think actually that has changed a little bit in the last 90 days.
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Where inventory has made a buyer recognize the value of the major ticket items. We call it like the unfun stuff you don't want to put money in when you move into your home. You don't want to replace the roof if you don't have to. You don't want to change the HVAC. You don't want to have plumbing issues, foundation issues. So we go in there and have a little bit of a clarity in how could you see this home as yours with those aesthetic modifications that I didn't even think a year and a half ago, buyers are like, no, I want HGTV ready. I don't want to do a thing. I'd rather pay more for the house, build it into my low interest rate mortgage. I can afford that. Today, I think with inventory, we're opening eyes to buyers to see why it makes sense to save a little bit on that and do a little bit of work at the end.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue, some of our value proposition to our customers is having a pool of tradespeople
Mm-hmm.
that we can get in there and help you if you found the right house and just needs carpet, or maybe it needs a bathroom remodel, or
wallpaper removal,
any of it, wallpaper, any of the stuff. We've got folks that are willing to get in there, and because we give them so much business, they actually answer the phone when we call them. Imagine that.
And the big things, roofs, HVAC, we help a lot of our sellers with regard to that too, to help them, get to that point where a buyer's going to feel comfortable.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to share real quick that we talk about at the workshop, get back to that screen again real quick, and now we've got this really cool calculator. So for those of you, actually, I'll put this back in the chat. There's a really neat rent versus buy calculator on realtor.com's website. And if you really want to geek out on this, I know this might put some people to sleep. And though, if you look at the actual numbers, it's kind of shocking when you start saying, okay, if I want to buy a $200,000 house versus if you want to buy a $200,000 house, let's just say in Westlake, you'll spend $180,000. You'll spend $1,800 a month in rent for that same house. If you put down even just 5% down payment, your mortgage rate, I put in here 3.3, which is probably lower than that. If you have 4% in closing costs, which you probably will not even have that much. If we figure this auto calculated $167 a month for maintenance. I don't know where it came up with that number, but that could be anything from, money you put away every week every month for big ticket items, furnaces, whatever. Homeowners insurance, additional utilities. They just threw some $50 in here. Another 7% to sell it on the back end. If your home appreciates 2% a year over 30 years versus paying rent, plus your renter's insurance, plus your rent going up 2%. This also even figures out, let's hit the calculator real quick. It shows that after 2 years is your break-even point, owning versus renting. That's if you only appreciate it at 2%. The other thing that's really, I was excited about this calculator. I can tell a lot of people might or might not be. This even goes to figure out that, okay, and sometimes they'll talk to maybe a financial planner or somebody that says, well, what if you didn't put that $10,000 down payment into your house? And what if it's actually a little bit cheaper every month to rent? How does that all work out? If you were to take that savings and you were put it into an investment that was returning 4% rate of return, in this case, it has 2% of inflation rate, and your tax rate of 28%, when will you still break even, or when will you start making money? I just think it's really neat that this calculator even calculates that, and it still shows you, and down here, this crazy cool breakdown with all the numbers and everything. The quick way to look at this, though, is Mary and I were looking at this earlier. Let's assume the worst. Holy mackerel, the sky falls, your home depreciates 2% a year for the next 10 years. And you're going to stay in this house 10 years. Oh, so let me calculate. You still save $80,000 in 10 years if your home depreciates 20% in the next 10 years versus renting. So I think these are, sometimes people get worried about, oh, what happens if my home depreciates? Or, should I wait till next year when maybe homes are down 2 or 3% or 5%? And like Mary mentioned before, no. Grab a house now. And actually it comes down to your why, your big why and why you're buying a house. And financially, though, this goes to show you that now is always the time to buy. If you're going to only be in the house for another 2 or 3 years, yeah, maybe stay rent, meaning you're going to move out of Cleveland.
The other thing, we talk about rent versus buy. We talk about why buy, but oftentimes we're not financial planners, right, and we don't manage money. We do see how people can invest in real estate, and we do help a lot of investors. What we also learn is young people, I find especially intriguing that they're more interested in a portfolio of real estate or investing in real estate, living there now with the thoughts, I mean, my gosh, you're a class example of this, but I'm going to live in this home for the next 5 years. I'll probably upgrade into a next home, keep this as an investment. The rental market in Cleveland has been strong, and because I want to diversify out of the stock market, which is swinging crazily, but we know long-term, you're there for a long-term, but in real estate, it's just a great area to reinvest at rates we've never seen before. So I actually would think about buying just because it's another place to invest. And but there's some people say, well, I don't want to be a landlord. Well, there's plenty of opportunity for us to help you find private property management people that take that burden away from you.
You guys all know me. The people that know me personally know that I could get on my bandwagon about this. Go read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, or go by Hold is another book that he from Gary Keller. He has another one called Flip. So you can go to kellerinc.com, kellerinc.com, and grab those. In fact, it's cheaper there than if you go on Amazon. They can walk you through all that. Yeah, there's never been a better time to put a mortgage on a piece of rental property. And the real truth about that rent versus buy graph, there's some really neat spreadsheets also on Keller Inc. that walk you through this. I have 3 rentals. I'm in the process of buying another one. If you were to own my rental, the payment is less than if you rented it. So all my rentals, it's cheaper if they would just, those people would buy it instead of renting it. Now the flip to that is people go, why would somebody rent then? There's always circumstances. I've had folks in my rentals that have built a house, sold their other house. Now they need a spot for a year. People relocating into town, don't want to buy anything yet, want to get set up here. There's a whole bunch of reasons why folks rent too.
And the collapse in 2008, a lot of people being underwater had to foreclose, had to file bankruptcy. That presents its own set of problems to, challenges to buy. I'm hopeful that's not what happens now. What we may see a subset of people unemployed or furloughed that may end up wanting to rent. I don't think the economic downturn is going to stay like 2008, but it still makes it a great opportunity for people to invest.
For sure. Yeah. Looking to see if we have any other questions. So we talked about the state of the market. Will it rebound? We talked about it really hasn't gone down. So it doesn't need to rebound yet. Is this a good time to buy? I think we covered that. When will there be deals? We covered that. Rent versus buy, we covered that. One other thing we could do real quick that we do bring up at our sellers workshops too in person is, back to a grandma house. And, if we were to take you into the house on the left, most millennials would turn around and walk out of the house.
Well, they like the hardwood floors.
They like the hardwood floors, exactly. They don't like the checkered, tablecloth or the, old country chairs. This is the same house. All they did was paint the walls, just they painted the top of the walls and brought in new furniture. Obviously, it's a totally different look. So I think there's, again, some real opportunities here for people that can just see past, there's 2 gallons of paint. So it's $60, $70 worth of paint, and bring in your furniture. In fact, it's the same light. They didn't even change the light.
New window treatments.
On the window treatments. Okay. So maybe it's 100 and a new rug. So it's $200 probably, 250. So same thing with this bathroom. I think this bathroom would scare a lot of buyers away. All that happened in this bathroom was pulled down the wallpaper, painted the walls. There's companies out there that will actually reglaze the sinks and the toilet and the tubs. I probably would, if I moved into this house, I'd probably also replace the lights. I don't know about those groovy, I don't even know what you call those lights. And I think that was $600 or $700 that cost. Same thing with this kitchen. All they really did was paint the cabinets and paint the cabinets and paint the walls. And what would our friendly painter charge, Mary? I mean, that's probably $2,000.
Yeah.
Not even that, probably.
Yeah, I was thinking 800. Couple of window treatments, new furniture around the table, but that furniture can be not necessarily an investment. They could have, there's sources to get that.
Yeah, but I mean, great point. I'm just saying, so if I were to show a buyer the house on the left,
right,
don't turn around and walk out of there. Don't forget that table's going away.
Right.
Those drapes are going away. You can go get that. They replaced the light for probably $200, and that probably would include our handyman going and putting that new light up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe let's call it $1,000 to repaint those cabinets.
Right.
And for under $2,000, that kitchen looks totally updated. So don't get turned off. I think that this is where some real deals can be had, is when you go into the house on the left and know that all they really did was replace the flooring. They didn't even paint the walls in this house. This is one of our listings, and it totally changes the look.
Yeah, the glass block was there. And the beauty today with inventory for sellers is that we're finding buyers, overlooking a lot more than they did, as I mentioned, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
18 months ago. If this house is solid in the area they love, it's flying.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any other questions here. We talked about deals. We talked about the fundamentally differences between what's going on this shift versus the last shift. Talked about values. I think we've covered everybody's questions.
I got a question on a text, Ed,
Okay.
that talked about why would it make a difference if I use a real estate agent? And I know it's probably a friend of mine, but the one thing I do see, in our market now with inventory low, it can scare people off a little bit. Like, well, I'll wait till inventory gets better. But if inventory gets a lot more glutted, so will interest rates, and so it's a balancing act.
Yep.
But one thing I think is important, whether you use an agent on our team that's all full-time agents, and we do this job 7 days a week pretty much, knowing you have somebody as a buyer's agent who's on your side. And that means paying attention to the market, notifying you as soon as things go on the market, being available. And for today, that means a lot of things. That means previewing the home without you. Could mean, FaceTiming you at the home, virtual touring the home, going to the open houses without you because they're not available to the public, and making sure you have all the technology tools that we have as a buyer so that you're completely confident when you move into the house and you see the house or you make an offer.
That's a great point too. So I think, as, part of our value proposition on our team is because the market's so hot right now. And if Mary is tied up doing a webinar at 7:40 on a Thursday, and one of Mary's customers called her earlier and said, "Oh my gosh, I need to get in this house tonight because it's a brand new listing." There's like 9 of us or 10 of us on the team
Mhm.
that can go make that happen. Mary
Yeah.
can still go write the offer up when she gets done with this. But if one of our buyers needs to get into a house, we can make that happen. I want to say, on a moment's notice, we can get somebody into a house. So I
Yeah.
think that's a huge difference between if you're working with just a single agent that, is juggling 10 different buying customers at one time, as opposed to somebody on our team. Plus
And
the other 500 reasons why they should use our team.
right. The technology too, from the time you love the house, we can get our offer in because of our software capabilities and the transaction capabilities that we have electronically to share information and make sure you're getting your offer in first. I've seen that happen over and over again where we're the first ones in and we're able to secure the house for our buyer.
The other thing I see a lot of times, and we talk about at our team meetings, is how many times somebody on our team wins in multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to go into all the ways we make that happen because some of our competition is actually watching this. So we don't want to give those secrets away. So if you're a buyer out there watching and you ever want to find out how we're able to make sure we can do everything possible to make sure you win in a multiple offer situation, call somebody on our team, call your favorite team member, reach out to them, or call Mary. Of course, Mary's everybody's favorite team member. But if Mary's not, we have some other team members too. And we hear time and time again how we're able to get our customers, not necessarily always way outbidding. There's more tactics involved in that. And, because everybody on our team is full-time and has a ton of experience and sells an average of 30 something homes a year, we're very good professionals when it comes to helping represent our customers and making sure we meet all their needs. Any other questions that I'm looking at Facebook here. A lot of positive comments. I don't see any other questions yet. Let me see real quick.
The only other thing I think we didn't touch on, Ed, is what an educational process buying a home is. And that it's, even though we talk about the intensity of the market and how quickly we have to move, I just admire the way you have trained us all to become educators and facilitators of, every step of the way educating our clients. So when you work with us and anyone of our team, we're going to sit down with you virtually or in person, however you're comfortable, and take you through a buyer process that's going to be from start to finish, making you feel confident that you know exactly what you're doing. Because it's not a pair of shoes, as I tell my clients. You're not buying a pair of shoes. This is a house.
It's a very expensive pair of shoes, and it's harder to resell. No, it's a great point. And two thoughts on that. I know there's a real estate company, and I don't know if they still do it. I know there's one company in town that talks about that, how, guaranteed sale. And if we sell you your house, if you don't like it, we'll buy it back from you. And I'm going, no, we're just not going to sell you the wrong house in the first place. And one of the ways we do that is in a good hour, probably, buyer's needs analysis appointment. And you'd be shocked at how many buyers don't get that kind of service where we're going to sit down with you, ask you what you're looking for, why you're looking for that, and really dive deep on those questions so that we can really help you find the right house. I always joke that I don't care what house you buy, and nobody on our team really cares what house you buy. We just want to make sure it fits all your needs. We're not going to ever try to make you buy a house that you don't want to buy. And, everybody on our team has examples of, how they've gone the extra mile. And we get the feedback all the time. And I'm so happy and proud of all the great reviews that we get from, oh, Mary went way over and above and beyond. It did X, Y, and Z. And so did Jenny. And I mean, just everybody on the team. And it's because of, and I thank you for the shout out to me, but it's also because of the shout out to Keller Williams, all the training that we've gotten over the years, all the seminars we go to, everybody on our team everybody on our team is so learning based. We're in here sometimes more than you guys probably want on the team. And we make sure that everybody on our team has a ton of training. Most agents, I mean, it's sad how little training they get. And everybody on our team is in the office for at least 2.5 hours for meetings or maybe probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours a week, getting training and coaching and updates on the market so we can then update our customers. So.
And we can collaborate. So if I haven't come across a situation, I have resources like no other that have also, this is a multifaceted process. You find the home, you love the home, then we go through the process and we work with you every step of the way. So I just think it's an exciting time to buy a home. I think for those who are looking and in the market, you might really enjoy this right now. You might have a little more time. You will definitely get a lot of information and take advantage of the financial incentive to stop renting. I mean, if you're renting right now, I have a reformed renters club I want to introduce you to because they.
Is that on Facebook somewhere? Is there a group? You should start that group.
It's really at Deegan's in Lakewood, but we get together and then we'll get together again. But we'll do it virtually now. But join our reformed renters, and if you are thinking of investing in something beyond your own personal home, this is a great time.
Do you buy that first round at that event?
That's proprietary information. Join me to find out.
Let me know that when Deegan's is open. You let me know, and we'll be
I think,
down.
as you know, I've rented kitchens at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. So I see somebody said they got 2.875% interest rate. Holy moly, that's
great. Oh my gosh! Yeah.
The rates it's a phenomenal time to purchase. So if you have any other questions, always feel free to reach out to anybody on the team or Mary, wherever you want. And thanks for spending 45 minutes with us. Enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.